All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Sparks, and I'm the Business Development Manager at Cubase Center, located in North San Jose. Welcome to the Cubase Training Series. Today, we'll be hearing from Nelly Yusupova. Nelly, did I say that right? Yusupova?
That was perfect. That was perfect.
Awesome. Okay. And how to cut production development costs by up to 50%. Before I introduce Nelly to those listening on Zoom, Facebook, WeChat, and all the companies who will be listening during the Cubase Accelerator program, I'd like to remind everybody that you can listen to Nelly and all our other training talks on our Facebook page and YouTube channel by following and subscribing. The Cubase Training Series is a series of talks curated for our accelerator program for anyone seeking insight into various aspects of launching, scaling, and sustaining your business. Cubase Center is a 112,000 square foot incubator located in the heart of Silicon Valley. Inside, we have 12 office suites, 15 labs, 5 executive conference rooms, and 58 designated desks in our co-working space. We also have an entertainment area, a gym, an event center for large conferences, and much more. At Cubase, our goal is to create an environment where ideas, people, and companies can thrive. So we look to provide the best resources and network to support our members' vision. If you'd like to learn more, you can contact me by sending me an email at brian.sparks@cubase.com. That's brian.sparks@cubase.com. And I love to get you connected to the resources and network to help you thrive. I'd also love to invite you to our Cubase Global Pitch Day tomorrow, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll be leaving a registration link in the comments. It's actually already there. We will also have an on-site networking event starting at 5 p.m. So please feel free to join us for that. Again, feel free to contact me for more information, and I'll leave my contact in the comment section. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce all of you to Nelly Yusupova. Nelly is a CTO with over 18 years experience leading companies to technical excellence. She is a startup tech advisor, outsourced CTO, and creator of TechSpeak for entrepreneurs. Nelly is on mission to help entrepreneurs minimize technological mistakes, and through her online masterclass, TechSpeak for Entrepreneurs, she provides the roadmap to successfully manage technology teams and projects. You'll hear much more about that as we get into this. She's just recently included in Fast Company's League of Extraordinary Women. Nelly has been at the forefront of the women's movement online since 1999 and is a Wall Street Journal Women on the IT Fast Track. She has a long list of accomplishments. She is a speaker, a presenter for many organizations, and a major industry events, including Women's Entrepreneur Center and New York NY Entrepreneurs Business Network, Small Business Summit, and much more. So moving forward, Nelly, welcome. I'm so excited for you to be here. I'm so excited to hear about more. So I am just going to completely give you the platform and get into it. But again, from me and Cubase, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Oh, it's such an honor, Brian. I was so glad to connect with you, and I look forward to the session today. So very quickly, I'm going to share my screen and we'll jump in. And I see that we have some people here as well who are joining us in the chat. I would encourage you to participate, and also I'm happy to answer questions at the end as well. All right, I today am going to show you, let's see, how to make the shift from struggling to launch your products on time and on budget to successfully managing your teams and projects and save up to 50% on your product development costs in the process. Now, very quickly wanted to do a quick introduction. Brian did such an amazing job. Just wanted to talk about some relevant experience here of what makes me able to talk to you today. So today, I'm a CTO, a startup tech advisor, and a creator of TechSpeak for Entrepreneurs. And what's relevant for most of you is that I have personally managed tech teams and projects for over 18 years. And I've also refined and optimized my process over time. And I taught my TechSpeak 10-step process to over 1,200 students so far, and worked with hundreds of startups, helping them with their tech strategy, and also to fix and optimize their current processes, which we'll learn about today, and how much money you can save by focusing on optimizing your process. So I've got a question for you. Can you imagine what it would feel like if your developers can deliver your products on time and on budget? Think of how much money and time you can save if you had the tools and the skills to get your developers to deliver projects without delays. Type yes in the comments for those of you who are live here. If you no longer want to be at the mercy of developers, no longer not having the skills and the confidence to predictably launch your products on time and on budget over and over and over again. Can I get a yes to that? For those of you who are here, I can see you in the chat. So feel free to type yes. And this is exactly why I started teaching my process to tech entrepreneurs, so that they can get their power back and be able to lead a team effectively, whether you're technical or not. And here's where we're going today. First, we're going to learn what is a process and why a good process is absolutely not enough. Then we'll learn the difference between the lean versus the classic way of building products, 2 money-saving things that you should be doing before you build anything, how to define your MVPs properly to reduce the cost and time of development, how to see the red flags sooner and minimize mistakes. Then I'll very quickly talk about how to work with me, and we'll go into the Q&A. And we'll, from Brian's conversations, he will read the questions from all of you who are tuning in live from all of the channels, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions that you guys have. So what is a process? A process is a series of steps that, when followed diligently, give you the same result, no matter who performs it. It is a repeatable way to produce consistent results over and over and over again. And a good product development process is important because it creates transparency throughout your projects, so you can detect earlier when things are headed in the wrong direction. But a good product development process is simply not enough, because there's a difference between releasing code and releasing code effectively and efficiently. Lots of developers are releasing code every single day. If you currently have a team of developers, they're releasing code all the time and launching new features and improving existing features. But if they're not using the latest methodologies in their processes, then I guarantee that you are wasting valuable time and money due to inefficiencies and miscommunications. And I want to demonstrate how important an efficient process is with this story. So this is Eric. He's a student of mine. He had a software startup for 3 years before he learned the TechSpeak process. He had a tech team and a CTO. And this is what he said after 3 years of running his software startup. He said, after 3 years in business, TechSpeak would have saved us close to $500,000 in delays, development costs, and sleepless nights. $500,000 over a span of 3 years due to delays, development costs, and sleepless nights. And that's the benefit of having an optimized process based on lean and agile methodologies. Again, there's a difference between releasing code and releasing code effectively and efficiently. And please, 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 don't rely on your developers to come up with a process. Most developers are not managers or might not be familiar with the latest methodologies that you should be using. They might have picked up a thing or two from whatever place they worked at before your company, but it might not be the most efficient and effective process. Remember Eric, the story that I just shared? He had a tech team and a CTO, and they were not using an optimized process based on lean and agile methodologies, which meant that they lost almost $500,000 over a 3-year span period due to inefficiencies and delays. And now that we know how important an efficient process is, let's learn the TechSpeak 10-step process so we can see how you can save time and money, but allowing you to see the red flags sooner, catch mistakes earlier, minimizing the effects of the mistakes. Because it's unrealistic for any of us never to make mistakes. I still make mistakes all the time. And no matter how good your processes are, right? Today, I'm going to share an amazing process with you. But no matter how good your process is, it's unrealistic to expect that you will never make mistakes. The key is to catch them sooner, because the sooner you can catch them, the sooner you can address them, which will minimize the effects of the mistakes. And that's the job of the entrepreneur, is to minimize the mistakes in a startup so that you're not spending a lot of time and money going in the wrong direction, fixing and correcting, and all around wasting resources. Right? So the two core pillars of my product development process are learn early, learn often, and learn cheap, and executing ideas the lean way. For startups, especially early stage ones, learning quickly is really important, because the faster you learn something, the faster you will learn if you're headed in the right direction. You don't want to spend a ton of time and money going in the wrong direction. And what is the difference between the classic versus the lean way of building products? Let's first consider the classic way of building products, which is what most of us are familiar with. So in a classic way of building products, you have your great idea that you come up with, you write your business plan, you figure out how to get funding, whether you're going to fund it yourself or with friends or family money or angel money or VC. Somebody actually has to pay for building the product. Then you spend 6 months to a year building your secret product in silo, never sharing with anybody. And then you launch. So you've just committed 6 months to a year or even more of money, time, and resources, and then you get feedback. It may be a success, but what if no one buys? What if it's a problem not worth solving? Did you build the wrong solution? Did you target the wrong market? This approach is like shooting arrows at a target with blinders on. It is a big bet, and it's very, very high risk. It's slow to market, it has zero customer validation, and it is very, very expensive. On the other hand, Lean uses scientific methodology of hypothesis, test, learn, revise to discover what works with a lot less waste. In a lean process, every single brilliant idea that you have is actually a hypothesis that has to be proven right or wrong by talking to customers and getting insightful feedback, which allows you to learn whether your hypothesis is valid or if it needs to be revised. And then you create a new hypothesis that needs to be tested again. And everything drops into a lean development cycle of hypothesis, test, learn, revise, hypothesis, test, learn, revise. And the goal of the team is to minimize the total time through the loop by learning as quickly as possible. We already discussed the importance of learning quickly. The faster you learn something, the faster you will learn if you're headed in the right direction. So basically, in the lean way of building products, your startup is a series of well-designed experiments that you're constantly testing so you can adjust your path to success. And here's the key. The smaller your experiments are, the faster you can test and learn whether something is working or not. I'll repeat this again. The smaller your experiments are, the faster you can test and learn whether something is working or not. Instead of taking this long approach to figure out whether something is going to work or not, we're actually taking small steps to get to success faster. If you're here with me, type yes in the chat if you see why these two pillars are necessary for getting to success faster without wasting time and effort going in the wrong direction. It is really a game changer for a lot of people. These are the two core pillars that will completely shift how you build products, how you bring products to life. And it doesn't only just work in tech. Okay, just had to say that because I teach this process for technology, but it will work in absolutely any industry. So now let's dive into the TechSpeak 10-step process, and we'll talk about the 4 keys in my process that allow me to manage teams and projects successfully without wasting thousands of dollars. So key number 1 is to not build anything until you refine the idea and the solution. So these are the first 2 steps in the process, because no matter how good your team is, whether they're in-house or outsourced or some combination of the 2, you will always waste your time and money if you jump straight into coding without refining your ideas and the solution, because you'll end up building a lot of unnecessary features and functionalities that your customers won't end up using, which of course results in a lot of wasted development, which directly translates into wasted time and money. Validation will help you refine your good ideas to make sure that they are painkillers. It's not enough to have good ideas for your products and features. Your ideas must solve a painkiller problem and not be a vitamin. Because if people just want what you're building but don't actually need it, you will have a much harder time getting your customers to use and pay for your products. The number one reason why a lot of products and new features for existing products fail to be adopted is not because they couldn't be built, but because no one actually wanted them in the first place. In comparison, it's actually easy to build something. Finding the painkiller idea that people are willing to pay you with time or money, or hopefully both, that's what's really hard to do. That's what's called building a business, right? And once you know what the painkiller idea is, the rest of it is going to be so much simpler, because you can build a solution that solves directly what the painkiller idea is. And then you build a product with confidence, knowing that people are clamoring for this solution. Okay, everything is so much easier. And you would refine the idea through a process called customer development. Customer development validation will help you address and understand your riskiest assumptions and adjust them if necessary. It'll help you understand specifically how other solutions on the market fail to solve the problem you're trying to solve, and identify the exact target market who would be willing to use and pay for your products. Even if you already have a product in the market with paying customers, maybe there are certain features and functionalities that should be targeted to a segment of your customers. And you really need to understand the exact target market before you build the solution, because you need to figure out how are you going to sell this product to them? How are you going to market it to them? And what I'm suggesting is you do all of that work way before you build the product, because what you might discover is that maybe the target market is not the right one. Maybe I'm going after a market whose pain point is not big enough, and I am just going to have an uphill battle trying to sell the solution to them. And maybe I need to pivot even way before I start, right? That goes for new product ideas and existing new product ideas for an existing product, right? So without these details and insights, you will always waste a ton of money recoding later, because you would eventually learn these insights, but only after the functionality is built. Also, a very important note that customer development validation is not about putting together a few surveys or doing focus groups. To get these types of valuable insights, you have to follow a very detailed hypothesis testing process by conducting one-on-one interviews with potential customers. My customer development process consists of 10 steps, and I have over 20 worksheets that I use and follow. So make sure you don't take this step lightly. And I know so many founders who read all of the books on customer validation, they know all of the terminology, but they either implement it incorrectly, or frankly, they don't do it at all, because the books don't actually teach you the step-by-step for how to actually do it and put it into a process so that your team can actually use the step-by-step process to get to repeatable results. You must focus on testing the right hypothesis and design the interviews in a way that does not lead the user to your solution. You heard me right. You need to make sure that the questions in your interviews do not lead the user to your solution. In fact, I recommend that you forget about your solution in the validation step. Here's why. This is a story of a student of mine who's going through the program right now. She was referred to me by a startup advisor who's a friend of mine. And she basically told her to just do what Nelly says. And she came into the program with a prototype. And she said to me, Nelly, I don't need to do validation. I am a veteran in this industry. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I know my market in and out. And I know that this is the solution that they need. But of course, I pushed her to do customer development. I said, forget about your solution and do some customer discovery interviews for a week or two. And if you discover something new that you didn't know before, amazing, because you can literally take those insights and bake them directly into the solution. And if you don't learn anything new, also great, because that will give you more confidence that you're headed in the right direction. And of course, reluctantly, she did. And she discovered one insight in her second interview that she continued to then verify over the next 2 weeks that completely changed the solution. She was still solving the same problem for the same exact market, but she discovered that she needed to do it in a completely different way. And that, of course, saved her so much time and money. I know so many founders who build a product, they fall in love with the solution instead of falling in love with the problem. And they focus so much on the solution, they get so fixated on it, and then spend the next 2 years of their life trying to sell the solution, when in reality, the customers need something different, right? So learn how to do this work properly, or work with someone who knows the process. So let's actually calculate how much not validating your ideas is costing you. And we'll make some conservative assumptions. Let's assume that you spend an extra 3 months of developers' time because you've built too much functionality. Let's also assume that you're paying your developer $50 an hour. This is relatively low for a developer in the US. So if you're in another country or in another region, plug in your number to do these calculations. The total wasted amount based on these conservative assumptions is $24,000 for each new feature. In fact, as I mentioned, the cost of not validating is even higher than this estimated $24,000, because skipping this step has cascading effects, first in the development stage and then in the sales and marketing stage. You will spend extra time and money at every single stage, possibly for features and functionalities that no one will ever use. And for those of you who are not currently doing validation on every single product idea that you have in your current process, I want you to write down on a piece of paper 24K, so that you can let your brain know that this is something that you should focus on. This is the most important step in the 10-step process that I'm going to share with you. And I'm a developer. It's very easy for me to just jump straight into coding. But in my process, writing code is step number 8. That means there's 7 steps that we're going to do before we write a line of code. And that will save us so much time and money. A lot of developers, because they can build something, jump straight into development, and then they spend a lot of time and money, wasting time and money and years of their life trying to sell these products, when in fact, if you follow this methodically, this process, you can get to success a lot faster. So once you validate your idea, you'll need to then refine the solution by first building an interactive, clickable prototype of the solution without writing any code. And then you'll refine the solution by getting feedback from potential customers. And these prototypes are so realistic, your potential customers won't even know that it's not real. And I'd like to share a quick demo of a mobile app prototype. It's a recording of me actually using the prototype on my phone. So I'm going to quickly play that for you. This is a recording of me using the prototype on my phone. As you can see, I can click on buttons and different elements, and it feels like I'm using a real app. We're simulating these interactions using prototyping tools. These tools allow us to easily define what elements will be clickable and what the user will see when they click on a hotspot. And all of this is done without writing any code. Looks pretty realistic, doesn't it? Doesn't it? So prototyping will allow you to test multiple solutions before writing code, because just guessing what solution will resonate with your customers will always result in rewriting code. This is an example of one of my students who the first prototype that they guessed completely didn't resonate with their users. In fact, the first 2 didn't resonate with their users. They collected user feedback and got it right on the 3rd try. And if they had started coding after their first guess, right, they would have had to re-architect their entire app later simply because they skipped the step. And by the way, writing code is a way of prototyping, but it's one of the most expensive ways to do that. That's why we're trying to do clickable prototypes, because it is a lot cheaper to rapidly change prototypes than it is to rewrite code. So let's calculate how much not prototyping your ideas before you build them is costing you. Again, making some conservative assumptions. Let's assume that you spend an extra months of developers' time because you've built a solution that does not resonate with customers as much as you had hoped. And as a result, you have to fix things and recode. And paying your developer $50 per hour, the total budget blow based on these conservative assumptions is $8,000 for each new feature. And depending on how closely you were able to guess what solution would resonate with your users, the cost of recoding can be in the many thousands of dollars. And I know so many entrepreneurs who throw away a lot of code simply because they don't do this step. Okay, so let's quickly make a mental note here that if you need to work on this and you need to add this step to your product development process right now, write 8K on your piece of paper and make a mental note that this is something that you need to pay attention to. So we have somebody says, can you do a deeper dive into customer validations, researching, and feedback? So I would like to address that question at the end if we have time. We have a lot of information to cover, so I'm going to go through the process first, and then if we have some time, I'm happy to do that. All right, so let's go on to key number 2. Plan, budget, and estimate effectively so that there are no surprises. So this is steps 3 to 7 in my process. And once you've refined the idea and the solution, you're now ready to define, build, and deploy your solution. And instead of building the entire idea, you need to define a minimal viable version of the prototype that you created in step 2. By definition, an MVP, which stands for minimal viable product, is the smallest number of functionality that you can launch with that will still provide value to your customers. But simply reducing the number of features that you launch with from, let's say, 20 to 4 is not enough. Let me show you why. Have you ever wondered how the same exact project can be estimated to cost $10,000 and $100,000, and both estimates could be completely legitimate? That's because the details of what and how you build something matters a lot. Using the many different development cost reducing strategies that I teach, one of my students was able to reduce the cost of her MVP from $50,000 to $15,000, and more importantly, cut the development time from 4 months to 2 for a brand new product. Can you imagine what it would feel like to get your project's costs reduced from $50,000 to $15,000? Wouldn't that be amazing? Think about that. All of us should be saying yes, right? Well, here's the problem. The problem is that most developers don't think like that. And if you're working with an agency, they won't tell you this because the more you build, the more they get paid. So it's really important for you to know these cost reducing strategies so you can work with them and push them to help you reduce the costs of your MVPs and push back if they try to tell you that it's not possible or this is the only way to do something. We need to build something that really scales to millions of users when you only have 100 or 1,000. It doesn't make sense, right? You need to strategically plan things and then optimize over time. Remember that your goal is to launch as quickly as possible and then refine and iterate from there. And unfortunately, too many technical people fall into this trap of, I need to build this perfectly. I need to use this new shiny technology. But your job as the CEO is to implement a new way of thinking to make sure that they're not building more than you need to. And in order for this process to work, you must make the learn early, learn often, learn cheap mindset a part of your company culture and hire every single person in your company who's willing to work in this way. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And if you already have employees and you want to be able to shift your company to work with this type of process, you need to reevaluate your current employees and make sure that they get the right training, that they are also the right type of cultural fit. Because if they're not, no matter how much training you're going to give them, they're not going to be successful at this. Okay, so this is really important. And let's calculate how much not planning properly and not hiring properly with the learn early, learn often, learn cheap cultural mindset is costing you. Making some conservative assumptions, let's assume that you spent an extra 3 months of developers' time because you've built too much functionality, and or that you spent an extra 3 months and had a 3-month delay as a result of hiring someone that doesn't fit into your company culture and is not working out as well as you had hoped. And paying your developer $50 per hour, the budget blow based on these conservative assumptions is $24,000 to $48,000. But in addition to the monetary cost of delays, there are also opportunity costs as a result of being slower to market. A lot of you here who can not get your teams to launch things on time and on budget is because you're not planning well. Steps 3 to 7 are so key to making sure that by the time you get to development, all of the details of what and how you're going to build something are set so that there are no questions and no scope creep. So make sure that you write down 24 to 48,000 if you think that you need to work on planning and hiring well, and set a company culture with this mindset. Commit to doing this right now and make sure that you write this so that your brain makes a connection and remembers that this is something you need to work on. All right. Let's go to key number 3. Use Agile project management to see the red flags earlier and to minimize the damage of mistakes. So this is steps 8 to 9 in my process. And this is where we are actually writing the code. There are 2 different project management processes that you can use, Waterfall and Agile. And I use, of course, Agile, and in a few minutes, you'll see why. First, let's analyze the Waterfall project management and talk about that. So in a Waterfall project management, you create your product specifications, you do the design, you write the code, you do the testing, then you correct the bugs, you test again, and then you deploy the code to the live environment where your potential customers can use and interact with it. In a Waterfall project management, you make a big plan up front and then you execute in a linear fashion, hoping that there won't be any changes in the plan, because once you agree on what you're going to be building in your technical specifications, you can't change what you've agreed to build, even if your business requirements change, which is insane, right? And a typical project usually takes 3 to 6 months and sometimes a year to deploy. And if our goal is to launch things early and often, this process simply won't work for us. We need a way to deploy code a lot more often than every 3 to 6 months. And we need to have a lot more flexibility to be able to adjust the product roadmap if the need arises. And that's exactly what Agile project management offers us. It requires us to break up code delivery timelines into shorter periods. Essentially, Agile consists of a lot of mini waterfalls, and each period between analyze and deploy is called a sprint, and it actually should not be longer than 2 weeks. Agile project management allows us to break up large and unmanageable projects and split them into smaller, more manageable chunks that can be completed quicker, daily, weekly, or within 2 weeks maximum. And that is the magic of Agile project management. If you discover that something isn't working how it was intended to, then at least you caught it early. And you can now make the necessary corrections. The mistakes didn't cost you too much time and money, and you can get back on track fast. Coding is expensive, recoding is even more expensive. And similar to the waterfall methodologies, the requirements of the current sprint that is being executed right now cannot be changed, but all other upcoming sprints can be shifted around and new requirements can be added to any future sprints. And this works really, really well with the lean way of building products. Let's say you're talking to customers, you're looking at what the market has to say in your customer validation step. You discover that something that some new idea or some new insight that you see needs more priority, and you need to shift your current roadmap. And with Agile, you have the flexibility to adjust this very, very quickly, depending on how short your sprints are. Right? If your sprints are 2 weeks, then it takes you 2 weeks to be able to adjust things, or you have to wait for 2 weeks. But if your sprints are weekly or daily or even multiple times a day, then you can move even faster, right? That's the beauty of even shortening the sprints to be able to move things quickly. So what I've just shared with you are the principles behind Agile. From my experience, there are many, many people who are familiar with these principles, and they claim to be practicing Agile project management, but who are woefully lacking in effective practices. And this is where I personally spent a lot of time as a fractional CTO when I go into startups to help fix and optimize their Agile practices and to help their teams execute more efficiently. And I'll train their leaders, their project managers, their dev teams, their UI UX groups, their QA people, just all of them join me to ensure that everyone is on the same page and is working with the same set of principles. They're learning a lot of things and unlearning a lot of things with the goal to optimize their current process so that their team performs like a well-oiled machine. Remember in the beginning, I shared the hypothesis, test, learn, revise cycles that we're doing. By getting your team to execute really, really well and shortening your sprints, you're going from 2-week sprints to weekly sprints to daily sprints and even multiple times a day deployments. This shortens your learning time and gives you a lot more data points to make better decisions on what the next steps should be, which helps you refine and iterate faster and much more efficiently. There's a company called Etsy that I absolutely love. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. Used to be a startup, but is no longer a startup. They're IPO'd recently. And at 400 developers, they were making 250 deploys a day. Can you imagine how finely tuned their process needed to be to do such frequent releases? But what that allowed them to do, to get as a company, are 250 new data points from which to make better decisions. They didn't get there overnight, and that's what I want you to aspire to as a company, because there's a lot of benefits to moving a lot faster. So let's calculate how much not using an effective Agile practice framework and principles is costing you. Making some conservative assumptions, let's assume that you spend an extra 3 months of developers' time because you didn't catch the mistakes early enough and you've built functionality incorrectly. And as a result, you have to find the mistakes, then fix things and recode code or redo the work. And paying your developer $50 an hour, the total budget blow based on these conservative assumptions is $24,000. But of course, in addition to the monetary cost of delays, there are also opportunity costs as a result of being slower to market. So if you know that you need to revisit and optimize your Agile practices, and try to figure out how to speed up your sprints if you're already on Agile. If you're not on Agile, you need to just jump on it right now because it'll completely change the game for you. So type 24K and let your brain know that you need to work on this key, okay? And I see some questions coming in. I'm going to address them at the end. We're almost finished. I'm going to cover the last key, which is measure, analyze, and refine through rapid iterations. And this is step 10 in the TechSpeak process. So now that your MVP is launched and is in the hands of your customers, lots of people celebrate and they say, woohoo, we did it. But your work is far from over. And in my opinion, now is the time when the real work begins. So this is where you will implement all kinds of analytics and start collecting user behavior data that will help you learn how your users use your product, what features and functionalities they use the most, what delights them and what makes them frustrated, what brings them back to using your application over and over and over again, and why they might not be coming back as often as you'd like. All of these data points will help you make decisions. Which one of your existing features needs to be improved and how? What new features and functionalities would make the product stickier so more and more of your existing customers use your product on a regular basis and also recommend and refer new users to you? Data-driven decision-making to improving your product is absolutely transformational because instead of guessing what exact features to focus on to get more users to use your product, you will now have data that will inform you on what next new functionality that you should be testing and implementing, which will prevent you from spending a lot of resources on building the wrong things. So in step one, validation, we're validating the idea's riskiest assumptions with a small set of your customers, potential customers. Here, we're now scaling our learning with a much bigger subset of customers, actual people who are using our products. And then from here, we'll get ideas on how to improve the product and improve the retention of your product, and go back to step one to validate all of the new ideas that you have on how to do that, and form new hypotheses, and then go through the 10 steps, and so on and so on, right? This is a never-ending process that you keep going until you reach product market fit, okay? A lot of people skip the step, they guess how to improve their product. And another big mistake that I see is that people launch, and instead of focusing on creating retention or increasing retention within their product and getting people to come back and using it on a regular basis, they spend a ton of money on marketing. So let's say you spend a ton of money on marketing, you bring people back into your application, right? And they don't see the value of your product soon enough or early enough, and they don't understand how to use it because it's broken or it doesn't work, and then they leave. And you spend lots of money on marketing, bring them in, and then they leave. We call that the leaky bucket, right? You should be focusing on improving retention within your product, and only then spend money on marketing when you know that you are able to keep your customers happy. So let's see how much not using behavior analytics is costing you. The blown budget actually boils down to a formula. The formula is the number of customers that you've lost times the cost of the user's lifetime value, plus the marketing costs of getting the user to sign up to your application. And depending on how many users you lose as a result of not communicating the value of your product or feature quickly enough and not improving your product fast enough, the cost can actually be in the thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the variables in the formula. So let's plug in some very conservative numbers here. Let's just say that you lost only 100 customers and your customer lifetime value is $150, and it actually cost you $50 to acquire those 100 customers. Then the total amount lost based on these very conservative assumptions is $20,000. That's assuming that you've lost just 100 customers. That's how important this step is, okay? So now let's go through the minimal total savings of that if you use all of the 10 steps in the process, right? That would equal to $121,000. So if you're not validating, if you're not prototyping, if you're not planning and hiring properly, if you're not using an efficient agile framework, not using behavior analytics, then you're wasting $121,000, and that's for each new product release. That's crazy, right? So the TechSpeak process, the 10-step test, say that many times, the TechSpeak 10-step process will actually help you learn early, learn often, and learn cheap. It'll help you minimize mistakes, minimize miscommunications, minimize deadlines, and minimize waste. And of course, save you time and money. And by learning early and often, you will increase your chances of hitting success. Again, all of these steps are a part of the process, so make sure that you don't skip any of them. It is the combination of the steps that creates the efficiency and the transparency that you should be looking for. So this is the question I want you to ponder. Startups generally don't have a lot of extra cash laying around. Why are we not focusing on optimizing the product development process? Because having an optimized process is clearly a huge way to save yourself from wasting precious cash on something that can easily be avoided and actually extend your startup's runway. So learn this process to get your time and money back and ensure that you don't waste a bunch of money doing a bunch of things that aren't important or doing things incorrectly without an efficient process. So very quickly, I want to pause here to review and do a quick recap of what you have learned so far. First, we'll learn that there's a difference between releasing code and releasing code effectively and efficiently. We'll learn to use the lean way of building products to learn faster and iterate to success, to use validation and prototyping to test and refine ideas, to use development cost reducing strategies when defining your MVPs to reduce the cost and time of development, implement an efficient agile framework to see the red flags sooner and to minimize mistakes, and of course, to use data-driven decision-making process to improving your products. All right, make a mental note on what you need to focus on here. And for those of you who resonated with me and you're ready to take the next step and are serious about committing to running your tech startup effectively and efficiently using my proven roadmap, and to get the exact recipe for launching your products on time and on budget, I'd like to invite you to learn about the TechSpeak for Entrepreneurs Academy, which is an opportunity for you and I to work together to get your ideas developed and launched using my proven 10-step product development process. I will teach you exactly how to manage teams and projects like a CTO, even if you're not technical, which you absolutely don't need to be. So the TechSpeak 10-step process consists of 10 modules of all the one for everyone at the 10 steps that we talked about. And I actually offered a 15% discount code to the Cubase community. Cubase15 is the code if you guys are interested in joining us. And I also wanted to offer for any of you who are interested, a 15-minute consultation with me. It's absolutely free. Go to techspeak.co /15 free to book that. And I'm happy to help you in whatever way I can. I look forward to working with you, and let's address some questions. All right, so here we have, can you go deeper into customer validation, researching, and feedback? So customer validation it's an art, okay? Like I mentioned, a lot of people focus on their solution and they bring that bias to the conversation. So the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of startup founders make when they even know how, like what to do or how to do, right, is that they lead their user to their solution, or they only hear what they want to hear, right? To get the benefit of this process, you really need to be completely focused on finding painkiller ideas, because what you've created or what you've thought of as a solution, a lot of us are focused on ideas, right? And ideas come with a solution. This is how I can solve this problem. But if we spend just talking sometimes to 20 to 25 of our potential customers and really understanding who is that early adopter, who is so passionate, like has such a big problem, and they're currently trying to solve it in very inefficient ways, that if we solve problems for them, that eventually we can expand our target demographic. But if you do that and you focus on one small group of people and solving actual pain points for them, you'll have the confidence to know that the product and the solution that you're building is actually going to make you money, that people are going to be using it. And so many things like can be like building a business is going to be so much easier. I find so many people just build solutions and that never see the light of day. And you could be working on the best solution out there, but, and this is an example that I share at TechSpeak, I think that will demonstrate a lot of this. So there was a company that built a product that everyone on the team loved. And when they went to pitch it, right, they spent, I think, like a year building it. It was a super complex solution and it was definitely needed in the market, but they never talked to anybody and they never talked to the agencies that they would be selling to. And so they went and had over 300 meetings trying to solve this. And at every single meeting, they said, we love this. This is perfect. This is exactly what we need, but we can't buy it because it doesn't flow with our current process, right? And these are all important things that you can discover when you're having those conversations. So hopefully that helps you. Again, I have, as I mentioned, a 10-step process, pretty involved. The key is to really focus on the problems rather than the solutions. And then based on the problems that you identify, then come up with solutions that directly solve those problems. All right, next question. Can you give a contrasting example of this mindset? I think the mindset that I was talking about is pushing back. If somebody can clarify that question, I don't know, Brian, if you can ask a follow-up. I'm not sure exactly what they're asking. I'm happy to answer it. I just don't know where to go with it. I think they were talking about.
No, I think it was the Agile versus Waterfall mindset, I believe.
Was it? Okay, I thought it was a little bit earlier in the presentation.
Possibly.
So if we can get clarification on this question, that would be great. I think it was around planning and budgeting. And so I think it came around the cost reducing strategies and how the developers will always tell you to build more than you need. This is when I remember it kind of popping up, but I'm not sure. So if this is the mindset is really trying to figure out, like the whole mantra is learn early, learn often, and learn cheap. So making decisions with that mindset is really important. Are you going to custom build everything, or can you use a lot of the tools that already may exist that will help you cut the learning time, right? Those are the types of things that you can use and answer over time. And a lot of my students, once they learn this, right, they catch the developers always consistently, and not because they're malicious. This is what developers are trained to do, consistently recommending that they custom build everything, rather than looking to see what other tools and technologies that can help speed up the development time. Because the goal is to learn whether you're on the right track or not, right? And so I think that's the right question. If not, I'm happy to answer the follow-up.
Nelly, I got a question. I mean,
Yeah.
I got all my notes laid out here. I'm loving this. Talk a little bit about how you get cultural buy-in. Now, you talked about hiring the right fit. Now, you bring people in, they're doing a lot of things right, but there's just like, there needs to be a shift. And this may be to the last question about the mindset thing, because I grabbed something at that point, is that you have these hires, you have this culture that needs to have a specific mental approach to addressing a problem. So how do you bake that into your culture? You grab onto the CTO or the CEO, you grab onto the leader, the founder, and you give them this information. Now, how do they take that and integrate it into their culture?
Yeah, I think the person who needs to work on and make this a part of the culture is actually the CEO. And if the CEO wants to take, and this is really funny because I'm going to use an example of someone that I met in Silicon Valley when I used to teach TechSpeak in person, which I did for many years when I first launched it. There was an entrepreneur who introduced himself as a 3-time founder with 3 successful exits. One of his exits was 100 million plus. And as I'm listening to his introduction, I'm like, why are you here? You obviously have it figured out. And what he said to me at the end of the 2-day session was completely shifted what I was teaching, like in my mind. Because prior to that, I thought I was teaching a product development process. But really, if you take this and make it a part of your culture and run your entire company on this, it completely changes the game. So this was Joseph. And he said to me, Nelly, I have a tech team and a CTO. Every single one of my companies that I started with was with these guys, and I absolutely love them. And as I was sitting here for the last 2 days, I saw and learned that they were using some version of your process. But he said to me, had I known of the benefit of the learn early, learn often, learn cheap mindset and made it a part of our company culture and hired everyone, not just our tech team, but our marketing, our business development, our sales, and all of us as a company, made decisions with that mindset, we wouldn't just have a good exit, we would have had a great exit, and it would have happened a lot faster, right? And the benefit of doing that is is just you're constantly experimenting, right? There is no assumption that this is the right decision. And you're taking small steps to evaluate, are we going in the right direction? And so it's essentially reduces your way of going in the wrong direction for too long. And so this type of mindset and culture has to come from the top. And you basically have to create a list of what I call DNA qualities for your company and for each of the roles of the types of people who will need to do them, right? Because it will, when you're talking to a tech person versus a marketing person versus a biz dev person, right? They might have to have certain types of qualities to be able to be successful with that. And then you hire people who have those qualities, because not every person is good at experimentation, right? Some people like doing things predictably, and they need to be able to have the longer cycles. They need to be able to do whatever it is that traditional people do, right? And so you need to be able to intentionally hire people with this type of mindset. And then as a person who enforces the culture, you need to live the culture, right? And it all comes from the top, because if only the tech team is doing it, but the entire company is not doing it, then everybody's going to be frustrated, right? And they're essentially, the employees are always looking at the management team to see how they're acting. Are they enforcing the culture? And so to me, the lean product development culture has to come from the top. Everybody on the team has to be familiar with the concepts. And if they're not familiar, but they're still the same, the type of the right cultural fit, you can teach them the skills, right? You can teach them the skills, but they still need to be able to experiment and learn really quickly. They need to be able to be okay with uncertainty. And it's essentially, you're creating a lot of different experiments, like in a science lab, right? And you're seeing all of these things kind of transpire in front of you. And you need to be able to be agile and lean enough to make decisions, switch directions, do all of these things. It's very uncomfortable. So it has to come from the top. The decision has to come from the top.
Okay, you asked. I want to plug another one of your talks. Since you're not giving it here today, but you do it weekly. You give a talk about non-techie founders who then lead tech companies. So everything that you provided here today, and possibly more in the other talk that you give weekly, if you're interested, get a hold of Nelly and get on her mailing list. She's got weekly talks. She's on Clubhouse. She's all over the place. You want to definitely hear more. But Nelly, speak a little bit more to the non-techie who is leading this mindset that you're sharing with us today. You don't need to be a tech guru, is that correct?
Absolutely. And the reason why I started teaching this is because I heard a lot of horror stories from non-techies losing thousands of dollars, trusting the wrong tech people, or not being able to ask the right questions, not setting the right expectations. And so I created initially this process for non-technical people, and then of course started teaching it to other organizations and big companies as well, because it's the same process. I think for non-technical people, there has to be a realization that in order to be attractive to a technical co-founder or a CTO or someone to take you seriously, you need to show them that you're not just an idea person, right? And you need to be able to manage a team to get yourself to traction. And in order to do that, that means you're going to have to manage the team on your own. And you need to learn the skills on how to do this effectively. And essentially, once you get to a point of traction, you become much more attractive to both technical people, to investors, and all of these other people like who can help support you. And a lot of my non-technical founders who are just starting out, they're earning their technical co-founder through managing their team, right? And I've seen this happen prior to TechSpeak. They would pitch their ideas and try to recruit a technical person, but a technical person who's risk averse, who has a lot of opportunities on one hand, and 2 out of 10 startups fail in their first year. Like, there's a lot of risk involved, and who's going to take a risk on your idea without having that built-in relationship? So this will allow them to look for people parallel to them building their product so they don't miss the market opportunity, but I'll, at the same time, allow them to earn the right, essentially, to be at the table, because now they know that we're not just the idea person. I know how to build this with or without you, but this is now a great opportunity that you can be a part of. Do you see that, like the conversation shift? Come work at my company because I need you to build the product, versus this is a great opportunity. If you don't jump on this train right now, you're going to miss out, right? That's essentially the strategy.
I love it. And what I love to hear, and I'm a feeling guy, right? I love the feeling of something. And what I like hearing of how you're addressing this is being in the life science industry, which Cubase is you have some very smart people who are very focused on their specific niche. So you have smart people who are looking to now shift from data oriented and need to see a bigger picture. And what I hear you suggesting today in your system is it really gets the parts healthy so the whole is healthy. And the way that congruently lines up and the individuals or the individual steps, the 10 steps that you provide, makes a healthy whole. I can't tell you how many companies I've seen that are healthy over here, but dying over here. And it reflects a lot of the leadership, because again, they're incredibly smart, but they're siloed in their thinking. The ones who succeed get out of their silo and say, hey, I'm weak over here. I need to bring in some new knowledge. They, like you say, they learn fast, they learn cheap, and they grow. And so what you're teaching here fits the model that we kind of push here at Cubase into our network. So I can't thank you enough of how you knocked it out of the park today. It was amazing, Nelly.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to share this information. I'm very passionate, as you can tell, because I've just seen too many companies fail oftentimes as a result of them just running out of money before they can build a product, right? It's just sad. And my goal is to make sure that people don't end up in that position, by learning the skill set and implementing a process, which, some people say, well, process is too slow, it's micromanaging people. But what I say to that is, if you want a repeatable way to get something done without mistakes and have your team aligned and actually be confident in what they're working on is the right thing, then a process can completely shift the game. And actually, a lot of us who are remote now, right, it gives you an opportunity to now manage a team no matter where they are, because you have a very specific way of how you build products, and that will allow you to function without delays, get predictable launches, and become more confident on how you're going to sell your product, when you're going to do it, etc. So happy to do it. And again, if you reach out to me, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to book a call.
Definitely. I'll pass this on. You said a word in there that is really sexy to VCs, and that's predictability. And I think, again, when you bring this system into a pitch to look to launch, scale, and sustain your business, the ability to articulate this communicates predictability, which is sexy to VCs. So again, Nelly, I want to thank you for joining us today. I want to thank everybody who joined us on Zoom, Facebook, WeChat, those of you who will be watching this on YouTube later, and all of you who will be watching this in our accelerator program in time to come. This contact information, Nelly's offers, the 15 minutes, the discount, we all be available. I can't wait to introduce you to our accelerators, Nelly. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. Loved hearing it. Please contact Nelly. And if those of you who know me, I will get you in contact with her. Don't miss out on this. Absolutely a priceless resource. Nelly, you're amazing. Thank you. Catch her on Clubhouse weekly. Nelly, what are the days?
Yeah, I usually do Clubhouse rooms where I just answer questions. So definitely jump in there. It is usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Sometimes I switch Tuesday with Monday, depending on my schedule, but it's get on my mailing list and I'll send you updates every week on which days.
Okay, awesome. Great seeing you, Nelly. Thanks again. Everybody stay safe. We'll see you at the next Cubase training series. Take care. Bye-bye.